Probably the story of the last 24 hours in terms of the transfer portal and Twitter. Texas Tech, man, out of seemingly nowhere, the Red Raiders have become big winners and big spenders. You would assume. I mean, I'm not assuming here. The commits and the crystal balls tell the story. So not all of these guys that we're going to go through here are officially signed or committed just yet, but crystal balls starting to pop through for a lot of them. And we're talking about the transfer portal now, D, but it started in this last week when, for example, they outbid a Houston. They just ripped Houston's defensive coordinator right from them. And Houston, not a school that is normally shy about spending money either. So they do that in the coaching ranks. They go get a new offensive coordinator as well, and had an 8-win season under Joey McGuire. So obviously they're saying, let's go reinvest. Let's go in on what we have built. We feel like we've built already here, and take this thing to the next level.
Yeah, the money speaks loudly. You look at not just the guys they're bringing in from a portal standpoint. Look at the offensive coordinator and defensive coordinator. You get Mac Leftwich from Incarnate Word and Texas State. Big time, creative, highly productive offensive coordinator, hot name. And then Sheil Wood, who you get from Houston. We saw Coach Fritz at the press conference we talked about on one of our prior shows. He was saying that Wood left because of money. That was a money deal. Texas Tech, which is in the same conference as Houston, just spent more money to land Wood. So the money spent on coordinators, you're seeing the same thing in the portal. And look, year 4 for Coach McGuire, 8 regular season wins for the first time since 2009. You got Baron Morton coming back. You got a lot of juice in this program. The difference between where Texas Tech is and where Arizona State is, I don't think is a ton. Of course, Arizona State in the playoff, having a first-round bye. I don't see a huge difference personally between those two programs. So it'll be interesting to see how the whole thing develops. But 4 straight bowls for Coach McGuire, and portal-wise, man, we'll go through the list, Pete.
Yeah, let's just kind of go through these names real quick. We got a lot of guys to talk about, so let's just get right to it. Lee Hunter, him and Jaheim Otis from Alabama, who just pledged his commitment, or I should say signed to Colorado yesterday, were considered the top 2 defensive linemen in the portal. This is a guy who, again, you can't teach a couple things when you're talking about portal. Big interior lineman who can fill space and move a little bit. And then the fact that he's played a couple years, started his career at Auburn, didn't play there very much, transfers to UCF, and really takes off the last couple years.
Yeah, we talked about this yesterday with Jaheim Otis, who went to Colorado. These body types are just not something you're going to sign to the Big 12 out of high school, particularly since the majority of these kind of guys are from the Southeast. So they're going to the Southeastern Conference. Lee Hunter, no exception. He's from 8 Mile, Alabama, top 100 recruit. He signed with Auburn out of high school, goes to UCF with Coach Malzahn, does very, very well there. You look at the 2024 campaign, probably his best. 45 tackles, 9.5 for loss, 1 sack, 6 hurries, and the size, man, 6'4", 340. He wears it well. He looks the part of a top 100 player. Again, not dissimilar from Jaheim Otis, who from Mississippi goes to Alabama, now on his way to Colorado. So the way you get those guys on your front line is this way, through the portal. And I think this is obviously a huge get. Florida State wanted to get Hunter. They had the connection with Coach Malzahn. They were unable to get that done. So this is a big, big win for Texas Tech, for a body type and an athlete that you're just not going to get out of high school, and they're hard to come by, period.
Talk about a big win. I think this has to be right up there for them in terms of what they did yesterday and are still trying to finalize on some ends. But Reggie Virgil, transfer wide receiver from Miami of Ohio, legit big-time track speed, 6'4", highly productive player at Miami of Ohio. And again, you see the schools that were in the mix there: Oklahoma, Arkansas, Auburn, Michigan, Florida. We had heard Miami had some interest too. Like, you're talking about legit battles that they're winning here. And this is a guy that was highly coveted.
when you bring in a Baron Morton, or you have a Baron Morton, you want to bring in talent around him as a proven quarterback. You want to bring out the best in him, with him coming back to finish his career. So this is a guy that brings the deep threat ability. He was not a big recruit at all coming out of Florida. I mean, I'm pretty in tune with Florida recruits being down here, and I did not hear about this guy. He was 238th ranked recruit in the country coming out with the Mount Dora Christian Academy, smaller school, Central Florida, Apopka, same hometown as Warren Sapp, Brandon Merriweather, some other first-round picks have come out of that area. But he was a good athlete at that smaller level. He ran track, long jump, high jump, hurdles, and also played basketball as well. But then goes to Miami, Ohio, plays mostly special teams. This year completely explodes in a way that was, it wasn't a gradual progression. It was very, very little production and then huge. 41 catches, 819 yards, almost 20 yards per catch and 9 touchdowns. So that linear deep threat. He's 6'4", and he can go up. He does make some contested catches, but he's really very much a long striding kind of deep threat kind of guy. Put him in the Big 12, put him with an experienced quarterback. We'll talk about some of these offensive line additions in a second. He's going to be a very key part of this explosive offense. He looks like a Big 12 receiver just with his ability to run downfield. I think the fit in the conference makes a lot of sense.
And it doesn't stop there. It just keeps going. The next one that we're going to talk about is cornerback Bryce Pollock, coming over from Mississippi State. 6'1", productive player the last couple years for Mississippi State, and On3 had him ranked as a top 5 cornerback in the portal.
Yeah, it's similar to defensive linemen, right? The body types and the athleticism at cornerback, it's hard to sign the good ones out of high school because usually guys with those traits are going to the big Southeastern Conference schools, in this case, Mississippi State. So Pollock, 4-star player out of Snellville, Georgia. Like you mentioned, 6'1", 190 pounds. That length, that athleticism, hard to sign. He goes to Mississippi State, does well, 72 tackles, 10 passes deflected, a fumble, an INT in 2 years. Considered a top 5 corner in the portal per On3. Look, there's going to be a lot of high-flying offenses in this conference. We just talked about Colorado landing Caden Salter. They're going to be throwing the ball over the place. Arizona State with Levitt is going to be a dynamic offense going forward. If you want to keep up with some of these dynamic offenses, Avery Johnson, he's trying to throw the ball more. Of course, he brings a tremendous running threat. If you want to keep up with some of these quarterbacks in this conference, you have to have corners, and there's no better place to go than the Southeast, and they do so to get a top 5 corner in the portal, which I'm sure was not cheap.
One of my favorite players in the portal, but no longer in the portal because of the rampage that Texas Tech is on here, Cole Wisniewski, who you and I actually talked about him on our Kane show, but this is a versatile player, can play safety, 6'4", about 215, 220 range, ton of production in terms of interceptions, always seems to be around the football, maybe more of a linebacker, but a guy who can really play all over the field for your defense.
Yeah, very versatile. This is somebody who came in to college as a linebacker. No one really expected much of him. Moves to safety, gets 8 INTs. Like you mentioned, 6'4", 218, was on the NFL radar. Battled injuries here this past year, so that slowed down his production this past year. Missed a lot of games, but should be fully healthy. Wants to step up his game going to the Big 12. Interesting to see how he gets deployed. Will he be moving more towards that linebacker position as he keeps up with some of the faster receivers in this conference? Or does he stay as a safety? Do you craft a specific role for him? Shieldwood, that's why you pay him the big bucks, is to play with guys like this and use them in unique fashion. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens with this player. One of the most interesting watches. He definitely has ball skills. He's definitely a good tackler. Is he a big, Big 12 and those offenses, the way they throw it downfield, seeing him back there, I might try to move him closer to the line and just have him be that coverage linebacker. He's already 218 pounds. You could beef him up a little bit. I don't know what was sold to him. I am sure the Coach Wood had a presentation when he was recruiting him to Texas Tech. So very interesting to see how this guy gets deployed, but he was a hot commodity and a very talented player.
You mentioned the offensive line and what they did there. Hunter Zambrano might be one of the biggest pickups for them on the day. Top-ranked interior offensive lineman in the portal. Legit NFL talk about him before the season, coming over from Illinois State here, and not a sexy position, but to really shore up the inside of that offensive line with potentially one of the best in the country, it has to be a great feeling for that coaching staff.
Yeah, and he'll play tackle, actually, if you believe what he's saying. He's saying he's going to play tackle even though he's ranked as an interior offensive lineman. So we'll see what, again, you don't know what was sold from that Texas Tech coaching staff, but this is a guy, like you mentioned, NFL grades coming in, had some injuries. I watched him in high school, feels like forever ago, because he's from down here in South Florida, went to university school, same school that produced Zay Flowers, Kenny McIntosh for the Seattle Seahawks. So he was around some really good players on those teams. I believe he also had a stint at American Heritage, which was one of the top producers of talent in the country. So he's been around, but he was never, even with all those scouts and all those college coaches going to practice to see who they had, Zambrano was never talked about that way. And I think what happened to him was he's a late bloomer. He had the height. He was always pretty coordinated from what I remember watching him when he was younger. He just didn't have the power that he's since developed by working hard in the weight room and really reshaping his body. So now he takes it to the Big 12. It's going to be a step up at competition for him. But obviously, there's a lot of people that think very highly of him. And I think the opportunity, again, just going by his words, to play tackle in the Big 12 and show what he has there, boost his draft stock if he's able to do so. So that'd be an interesting one to watch. But he's not going to be alone potentially on that offense, because there's other – we've been, so much of the focus has been on defense with this Texas Tech portal, but they are adding some really nice pieces to the offense and projected by Crystal Ball for a few more.
And here's the next one, Howard Sampson, who was the starting tackle at North Carolina this year, 6'8", 325. I mean, absolutely massive. Interesting that he's entering the portal. Is this a Belichick decision? It seemed he entered about a week plus ago. So did he already have his mind set on that? But either way, Texas Tech looks like, this one's not official yet, but could be landing an absolute mammoth here at tackle.
Yeah, and look, we don't, like you said, it's not official. With the portal, things change so fast. At any second, he could be going back to UNC or going somewhere else. So we'll watch the situation. But the crystal ball currently on Texas Tech, put him on the other side of Zambrano. Now you have an athletic tackle, then someone who's a little more physical, just a big-bodied dude. Even though he went to UNC and kind of made his name there, he actually is a Texas kid. He's from Humble, Texas, as one of the commenters reminded me. It's not Humble, Texas. It's Humble, Texas. He originally signed with North Texas, played there before transferring to UNC. So Texas kid potentially coming back home, and the size, that's just Texas Tech's going to want to run the ball. We'll talk about that here in a second. This is a guy who there's just not that many body types like this in the Big 12. So you've added somebody like a Lee Hunter, who's a rare body type on the defensive side, potentially adding someone like Sampson on the offensive side. That's changing the look of your team. And now Texas Tech, which was always sort of the smarter team that overcame the lack of size and talent against the Oklahomas of the world and the Texas of the world just by being a little craftier. Now, on top of spending money on coaches, you are also getting size, and you might be the bully on the block when it's all said and done in this new Big 12. So that's a very interesting development right there.
And then a couple skill position guys that we'll wrap up with for Texas Tech. I mean, man, again, what a day for them. One that is official here is Terrence Carter, tight end, H-back, slot, whatever you want to call him. He's a very, very versatile weapon. And as Cooper Patania from 247 says, Terrence Carter's an awesome get for Texas Tech, versatile H-back. It's a fun chess piece. In the passing game, we'll have a Sunday future. Red Raiders are cooking. So this is a guy, again, coming over from Louisiana. Big numbers this past year, 48 receptions, 689 yards, 4 touchdowns. But the number to me that really sticks out here, D, is 14.4 yards per catch, showing his ability downfield.
Yeah, he's originally a Texas guy, right? So he's from Harker Heights, even though he went to Louisiana. And the only thing that tells you tight end is his weight and the way he's used at times when he does play that H-back role. But in terms of the way he moves, the way he catches the ball, he's a receiver. You could tell he's a very comfortable as a receiver. He's not someone that's becoming more of a receiver. He is a natural receiver. He's comfortable running routes. He's comfortable catching the ball with his hands. He can run after the catch. Basketball player in high school, again, in Harker Heights, Texas. So very fluid. And I think this is going to be a receiving weapon in the Big 12 right away. Nothing about this guy screams developmental. I think you're going to have a role for him right away, clear design of how you're going to use him, and you have a veteran quarterback who can get him the ball. With 689 yards, 4 touchdowns, I could see him replicating that production, but he does have competition for targets. So this offense is really, really shaping up to be a balanced group. You add the deep threat in Virgil, you add the move tight end intermediate threat in Carter. You got some guys in house. You got the veteran quarterback. You got potentially the set of tackles with Zambrano and Sampson. And then all it's missing is the running back to replace that phenomenal running game that you had this year. And looks like that might be coming soon.
Yeah, as you see right here, Pete Nakos from On3 yesterday put in a prediction for Roman Hemby from Maryland, a guy who has been highly, highly productive for the Terrapins, has rushed for 2,300 plus yards in his career, 22 touchdowns, and he ends his Maryland career tied 4th most in total touchdowns with 27, 8th most rushing touchdowns, and 11th most rushing yards. This is a big back, man. This is a 6 foot, 205 plus pound back. As I'm going to show you some clips here of him, but he's got some speed as well, D.
Yeah, and this is a position that, again, big shoes to fill. You have Taj Brooks, who's a 1,500-yard rusher this year for Texas Tech, one of the best running backs, if not the best running back in Texas Tech history. So a lot of shoes to fill, but you have a very good system to run, plus you're adding offensive linemen. So Hemby's somebody that I've always been a fan of. I'm surprised. When I saw his name in the portal, I was just surprised that he was still in the game. I thought he might be in the pros by now, trying to move on to that phase of his career. But, of course, NIL money can change the calculus a little bit. He's someone with speed. He's a track guy in high school. I believe he was a verified 4.6 in high school. That's usually a pretty good sign of maybe 4.4-ish, high 4.4-ish speed once you get the training and years of physical development on. He certainly plays in that high 4.4, 4.5 range. He's explosive Big Ten back. Maryland's offense took a step back this year because of the departure of Tagovailoa. I think he is somebody that go right into Taj Brooks' spot. I don't think he's going to replace the production, but the overall offense can remain balanced when you add someone like this, who's a proven back, who knows what it's about. He's been in the Big 10, so the Big 12 is actually a step back. Sometimes you see these backs go up in competition to prove that they can play. This is a guy who's been probably playing better competition in the Big 10 than he'll face in the Big 12. So he might want to show his explosiveness. He was somebody that didn't have a ton of explosive runs, despite being a faster back, an explosive back. The team just didn't had that kind of dynamic running game. So I think he wants to show that he can make those big runs, and he had that breakaway speed in a more wide open conference, and a system that obviously knows how to use tailbacks, as they showed last year with Taj Brooks.
And we always talk about quarterbacks when they're going through their process. They look at the offensive line. Running backs are the same way. Just looking at his stats, he had in 2022 as a sophomore almost 1,000 yards, 989, but 5.3 yards a carry. And then the last 2 years, 4.8, 4.5. You'd probably think that he wants to get back over that 5-yard mark, yard per carry mark. And with the additions on the offensive line, that has to help his decision-making process. So what a day for Texas Tech. And look, again, a couple of these still have to be wrapped up and made complete here, but it looks like things are definitely on the right track without a doubt.